Integrating Golohab, returning to strength. Strength is one of the most misunderstood qualities of human consciousness. Some fear their own strength, believing that expressing boundaries, conviction, or authority will separate them from others. Others become attached to strength itself, using power to control, dominate, or protect their identity. Though these expressions appear opposite, they arise from the same fragmentation. One abandons their power, the other becomes possessed by it. Neither fully embodies Gevura. Integration begins when strength is no longer used to protect the ego or hidden through fear. Instead, it becomes consciously guided by wisdom, compassion, and truth. Power no longer exists to control, it exists to protect. Boundaries no longer separate, they create the conditions for healthy relationship. Discipline no longer punishes, it cultivates freedom. This is the restoration of Gevura, not domination, not submission, but strength expressed in service of love. Healing repression. When strength has been suppressed, the individual gradually loses trust in their own authority. Boundaries become difficult to establish. Conflict is continually avoided. The needs of others consistently take precedence over one's own. Compassion slowly becomes self-sacrifice. Peace becomes dependent upon self-abandonment. Yet avoiding conflict rarely creates harmony. It often creates quiet resentment, exhaustion, and disconnection. Healing begins by remembering that strength is not opposed to love, it protects love. Healthy boundaries do not diminish compassion, they allow compassion to remain sustainable. Practices. Notice the situations in which you habitually say yes while internally wishing to say no. Practice expressing one honest boundary each day with kindness and clarity. Allow yourself to disappoint others when remaining true to your values requires it. Before automatically helping someone, pause and ask, am I acting from love or from fear of rejection? Practice making decisions without seeking permission. Remember that protecting your well-being allows you to serve others more authentically. Every healthy boundary strengthens self-respect. Every act of honest courage restores inner strength. Healing possession. When strength becomes possessed, power gradually replaces wisdom. The individual begins controlling rather than guiding, correcting rather than understanding, demanding rather than inviting. Fear quietly disguises itself as certainty. The desire to protect becomes the desire to dominate. Yet authentic strength never needs to prove itself. It remains calm because it is rooted in truth rather than insecurity. Healing begins by remembering that the greatest demonstration of strength is not control over others, it is mastery of oneself. Practices. Practice responding rather than reacting. When anger arises, pause before speaking or acting. Ask yourself, am I trying to protect truth or protect my identity? Practice allowing others to make choices without immediately correcting them. Listen before offering solutions. Notice the impulse to control outcomes. Whenever possible, replace control with trust. Practice admitting mistakes without defending them. Remember that true authority inspires, it does not intimidate. Every act of restraint strengthens wisdom. Every act of humility strengthens authentic power. Integration. As both extremes gradually soften, strength begins returning to its natural place. Boundaries become clear without becoming rigid. Compassion becomes generous without becoming self-sacrificing. Authority becomes confident without becoming controlling. Discipline becomes steady without becoming harsh. The fire of Gevura no longer burns through fear. It becomes a quiet source of stability. The individual no longer seeks power over others, neither do they surrender their own power. Strength becomes available whenever it is needed. Gentleness becomes possible because strength is no longer something that must be proven. This is the return of Gevurah, power guided by love, discipline guided by wisdom, strength expressed through presence. Recognition. As Golohab begins to integrate, subtle changes naturally appear. You become more comfortable expressing healthy boundaries. You no longer feel guilty for protecting your time, energy, or values. Conflict becomes something you can approach with calm rather than avoidance. The need to control gradually softens. Patience begins replacing force. Anger becomes easier to understand before acting upon it. You become increasingly firm without becoming harsh. Compassion and strength begin working together rather than opposing one another. People begin experiencing your presence as both safe and trustworthy, not because you are passive, but because your strength no longer needs to dominate. These are signs that Gevurah is becoming embodied. Living expression. As Gevurah becomes integrated, strength quietly transforms every area of life. Leadership becomes service rather than control. Parenting becomes guidance rather than domination. Boundaries become expressions of respect rather than rejection. Discipline becomes devotion to what truly matters. Courage becomes the willingness to act in alignment with truth, even when it is difficult. Others begin trusting your strength because it is no longer unpredictable. It is steady, grounded, compassionate. You become capable of protecting what is sacred without becoming consumed by anger. Capable of saying no without closing your heart. Capable of standing firm without standing above others. This is the living expression of Gevurah, strength that protects, power that serves, courage that remains rooted in love. Reflection. Take a quiet moment to reflect upon your relationship with strength. Ask yourself, which expression of Golohab has shaped my life more deeply? Repression or possession? Which practices speak most directly to where I am today? Where am I still afraid to establish healthy boundaries? Where do I attempt to control rather than trust? How can I express strength without abandoning compassion? What would change if I viewed discipline as an expression of love? Where is life inviting me to stand firmly in truth today? Strength is not measured by how much power we possess. It is measured by how consciously we use it. Every act of courage, guided by love, restores the quiet strength that has always existed within us.